Well, hey there, Jordan Valley Church. This is Pastor Johnny.
And Pastor John.
And we're continuing looking at this week's devotional. And we've made it to lesson 4 called Following Jesus Even in the Darkness. And for this one, we're really taking a close look at the few remaining people that really stayed faithful to Jesus in between the time of his death and resurrection. So John, what do you think are some things that we can see from their actions about what it means to stay faithful to Jesus even in the dark?
Yeah, a couple things that jump out to me here. One is in verse 47. This is maybe a little bit off what you're thinking, but it says Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid. Which is just kind of a side comment, and I didn't talk a lot about it in the sermon, but some of the things that lend authenticity to this account, because sometimes people would say that maybe they didn't know where Jesus was buried, or they went to the wrong tomb, right, like an empty one. And it's interesting that Mark kind of anticipates that by explicitly telling us that they saw where Jesus was buried. So that they knew where to go back to go to that right tomb. But the other thing in there, this is probably more along what you were, what we planned on talking about, is if you kind of put yourself, we've been kind of slowly working through the death of Jesus, and so many of the hopes of the disciples and these women were really wrapped up in Jesus, and now Jesus was dead. And I think that's something we can all relate to, where we very often have dreams or desires, or maybe even people, right, that we put this great hope in, and suddenly it seems to be as good as dead. And that's actually a theme throughout the whole Bible. I'm thinking of when Abraham is told to sacrifice Isaac, right? And here God is, this Abraham's hopes and dreams are wrapped up in Isaac, and now it seemed like that dream was about to die. And we have the same thing here. I don't know, what do you see?
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, I think, because Jesus is the only person, whether it's in the Bible or whether it's in all of our lives, Jesus is the only person who proves that he is worth all of our hopes and dreams and desires and ambitions and worship, even when he's just a dead body. And so, that day in between his death and resurrection, he was just a dead body lying in the tomb. But these few followers who wanted to honor that dead body, their hopes were proved true when Jesus rose from the dead. And I think, as you say, that tells us a lot for our life, because when we're walking through pain and suffering, and we don't know the answer for why God is allowing this to happen to us, it often feels like we're walking in the dark and we're following Jesus in the dark. But we can know from a passage like this and looking at individuals like this, that putting our hope in Jesus, even if it's in the darkness, will prove true, because Jesus proves true in the end. Yeah,
and I think there's a couple different directions you could try to apply that, right? That what do you do when these hopes that you had have died? And because some folks might want to apply this to then anything, right? Like whatever your hopes and dreams are, well, Jesus can resurrect them. But I don't think that would be a right application from this, right? Because the specific thing which you drew out is there is only one person who fulfills those hopes and dreams, right? And that even when all things, what we are facing seems as good as dead, Jesus might not revive some of our dreams. In fact, he might be putting them to death for our own good. But what we can trust in is those promises of God, right? Which are really wrapped up in the person of Jesus. And I think that's a big struggle with me, probably you, a lot of us, is we in some ways forget that the best thing that we can get is Jesus. And he'll never fail us, he'll never leave us. And even when it seems like he's either missing from the picture, like you're going to be talking about this Sunday when we look at Psalm 13, or when he seems dead, he never leaves us, right? And we wait for that resurrection, and we wait for him to come back. So that's probably a good place to stop.
Yeah.
And some thoughts to get you guys thinking. We're giving these short videos again because we really want to encourage our church to be participating in practice of private worship, but also worship in your own families. I think that's one of my biggest goals, is that by the time we get to start meeting together again, if we could have a good chunk of our church having learned the habit of worshiping together in their families, that would be a huge blessing for all of us. So hopefully we're encouraging you to do that, and we'll see you tomorrow.